Hi, welcome back. Last week we were talking about the Ice Age series. Today we're going to talk about something new. This is Magic Talk. I'm Will. We're here back at Midnight Games. So today we're going to do the 2021. We're going to open this up.
Cool part
Magic of editing, this will be open. I had just as much trouble last time because I have no fingernails. Now, like I said, with Magic of editing, the box is open. All right, first pack. You always got a token in every pack. Nowadays, anyway. The rare is called Pack Leader. This one is for dog cards. Other dogs you control get +1/+1, you know, things of that nature. Whenever Pack Leader attacks, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to dogs you control. So all dogs would essentially be protected thanks to your Pack Leader. All right, next card I'm going to talk to you about is called Bone Pit Brute. It is a card that has the ability of Menace. Now, Menace is an ability where as you're attacking, your opponent cannot block you unless they block with 2 or more creatures. I explained this in the last video with the Ice Age, but it wasn't the same because the creature I talked about last time had to attack or block with another creature instead. Check out the last video if you want, you know? Link will be up in the icon in top left corner. Editor, get to work.
You guys are gonna need a shirt that says editor, get to work.
Right? That's gonna be my catchphrase. Editor, get to work. All right, let's go to the next pack and see if we get anything good. All right, we got another rare legendary creature, human shaman. Subira Kalzidi, Caravaner. I said that perfectly. This card has haste, okay? And it has 2 abilities on it. One is tap 1. For every mana you tap, another target creature with power 2 or less cannot be blocked this turn. So it'll essentially help out on your low creatures, you know, ones that have very little attack. If you build a quick cast deck or something like that, this would be a good card for it. Make everything unblockable. All right, once again, another rare. Sadly, no mythic yet. Hopefully we get one so I can show you what the mythics look like in this series. Next card we have is called Double Vision. It's an enchantment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, anytime that you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can make a copy of that spell with this enchantment, essentially doing double the damage, double the life heal, or double counters. Alright, Lifelink is another ability that is very useful. Lifelink, as the creature attacks or blocks, you will gain life from that creature. Whether it lives or not is up to the power of the other creature. Right here we have one called Bloodglutton. Costs 5 mana to get out, 4 in a swamp. Has lifelink, but it's a 4/3. So you can gain 4 life every time you attack with this card or defend with this card. Alright, we're going to talk about a multicolor card this time. We didn't really touch base on them because there wasn't very many in the Ice Age series. Here is called Watcher of the Spheres. It's a bird wizard creature. It's an uncommon. It only costs a white and a blue to bring out, but getting both those mana at the same time is a little difficult in the beginning. It's more for a long drawn-out game. Creatures spells with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast, so they will be cheaper for any flyer if you build a flying deck around this card. And then whenever another creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, Watcher of the Spheres gets +1/+1 until end of turn. All right, we're on to another rare and another pack. This time, still no mythic, no luck yet. Hopefully soon. All right, next is a sorcery. It's called Primal Might. Target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn. Then it fights up to 1 target creature you do not control. So you can essentially power up your creature, give it trample or something like that to make sure you do damage to your opponent as well. I'm trying to keep trash out of the shop, so I'm sorry. This creature is called Hooded Blightfang. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a Planeswalker, destroy the Planeswalker. So even for a Planeswalker, it's an instant death as long as you have that card. Because remember, a Planeswalker is not actually a creature, so you can't actually use something like Death Touch to kill it unless it actually says you can. Next pack. This might be a little long. As you see, I am opening an entire 2021 box. So this is why I'm only explaining certain cards. I'm not going to go through every card like I did in Ice Age this time. One more thing though, I do want to give a shout out to our editor. If you want to check him out too, his channel is called Kane of Legends. Check him out on YouTube. Link will be in the description below.
And of course, I'm in charge of putting the link there.
Editor, get to work. All right, we got a rare artifact this time. Spark Hunter Masticore. Spark Hunter Masticore. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card from your hand. Protection from Planeswalkers. So no Planeswalkers can actually do anything to this card. It could have an ability that destroys target creature or a target artifact. Doesn't matter. With protection from that set of cards, it cannot harm it. Cast 1. Every time you pay 1 mana, Spark Hunter Masticore deals 1 damage to target Planeswalker. Every time you tap 3 mana, Spark Hunter Masticore gains indestructibility until end of turn. So again, another way to protect it from other cards, things like hexproof and haste and yada yada. Alright, so the next card we have is a rare land. This one's called Temple of Maladay. Temple of Maladay enters the battlefield tapped. So once it enters, you can't use it until your next turn unless you have a card that will untap target land. When Temple of Maladay enters the battlefield, you get to scry 1. Now a scry ability is this. You look at the card, however many it tells you, from the top of your deck. Then you can put those cards in any order back on the bottom of your deck or leave them on top. Lots of tokens, by the way. Lots of tokens. Oh, we also got Temple of Silence this time. Temple of Silence is another rare land. It's one of the, series of rare lands in the 2021 set. It's also a scry card. This one gives you white and black. The other was black and green, by the way, if you didn't notice. I mean, it was up on the screen, so. Once again, editor, get to work.
I'm probably just going to put a slow motion zoom in on the pile of trash in the corner of the table.
And the editor's going to cut this out. We got our first mythic! Alright, Terror of the Peaks. Terror of the Peaks is flying. It is a 5/4 dragon. Spells your opponents cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. So anytime they want to target this card to either destroy it, or do damage to it, or to nullify its abilities, they still will have to take damage from their own life to do so. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So, say you have a 5/5 you're going to bring out afterwards. That 5/5, when it comes out, if you have Terror of the Peaks on the board, will do damage to a creature, a player, or a planeswalker. Alright, next we got another rare. Still only 1 mythic so far, but that's only so far. This one's called Shacklegeist. Shacklegeist is a spirit. It is a blue creature that only costs 2. It is a 2/2 with flying. Shacklegeist can block only creatures with flying and tap 2 untapped spirits you control to tap target creature you do not control. Essentially, you bring this guy out here, he can only block another flyer. He can't block any other creature that comes out on the board. But whenever you tap creatures, you can tap your opponent's creatures, essentially making their cards useless. Kitty.
That's staying in.
Cards there, right?
That is staying in. I'm putting a picture of a cat on screen.
Alright, next is See the Truth, another blue spell. This one is a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. If this spell was cast from anywhere other than your hand, pitch each of those cards into your hand instead. So, if you got a card that will let you cast a spell from your graveyard instead, you can take all 3 of those cards and put them in your hand instead and use them if you need to. It's useful in a bind. We also got a second rare from just this one pack. Nice, this one's a Vigilance Lifelink. Speaker of the Heavens, it only costs 1. It's a 1/1. When you tap this creature, create a 4/4 White Angel creature token with flying. Activate this ability only if you have at least 7 or more life than your starting life total. and only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So what that means is when you start off the game with 20 life, if you don't have 27 life or more, that ability will not work. You will not get your 4/4s. You have to gain life first before you can use this card. But it makes for a decent blocker for only a 1 cast. Hey, we got another mythic. This time we got a Massacre Word. Massacre Word costs 6 to bring out, 3 swamps and 3 of any color. When Massacre Worm enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. So anything with toughness 2 or less will die. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player also loses 2 life. So if you bring this out, say your opponent has 5 1/1s on the board. When this comes out, all 5 of those 1/1s would die, and your opponent would lose a life for every single creature. So that's 5 life lost, just for 1 card being summoned. You're starting to understand magic a little more. Teferi's Ageless Insight is a spell card. It's a legendary enchantment. If you would draw a card, except the first one you draw, in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. So basically what it's saying there is every time you draw a card, you get a second card to draw, or you get 2 extra cards instead of just 1 when you use a draw card after your first draw. It does not count towards your draw phase itself. It counts only for after you've played something like draw a card spell or draw 2 card spells, and then it'll give you an extra draw as well. All right, now we got another creature. This one's a white, costs 2 to bring out. It's a 2/2. Commandment Priest has the ability Flash. Flash can be used either on your opponent's turn or your turn. It basically grants the card instant. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So if it's not a card that's casting out the tokens instead, say from your hand, and instead it's an ability from a creature or something like that, that creature's ability would make that token get exiled, so the creature would never show up. Hey, we got a Liliana, Waker of the Dead. Now that's a good mythic to pull. It's a legendary planeswalker. It is a swamp, costs 4 to bring out, and it's basically health, call counters, is 4 to start out with. When you bring the creature first out, you can use its ability right away, 1 of them. +1 to add to its 4. Each player discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. -3 ability. So you would minus off of this ability instead. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. So the more cards you have in your graveyard, the more damage you can do to a creature if you take away the counters. Once again, it only has so many, so you would have to build up to use the final ability, which is -7. Now the -7 ability is you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and it gains haste. Meaning you can take a creature from your opponent's graveyard or your own and bring it straight to the battlefield, and it can attack right away. Magic of editing, these will be all straight in just a second. No, it's not like we have our editor, trapped in the middle of a dungeon, chained to the wall, forcing him to do these videos. I mean, come on.
It's by his own rule. It's fine. My room could be described as a dungeon.
Hey, we got another mythic. Makes our 4th mythic out of this box. That's some good luck there so far. Discontinuity. Discontinuity is a mythic that's a blue that costs 6 to bring out. It's an instant. As long as it's your turn, this spell costs 4 less to cast though. End the turn. If you use this on your opponent's turn, at the beginning of their turn, you can just make their turn end. Or if your opponent's trying to get something at you while it's your turn, end your own turn. Kitty, meow. All right, the next rare we got was Stormwing Entity. It's an elemental. This spell costs 3 less to cast if you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn. It costs 2 and an island less, just to be specific. It normally costs 3 and 2 islands to bring out. So you could bring it up for only a cost of 2 if you played an instant or sorcery spell on your turn. Flying, prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So every time you cast an instant or sorcery, this thing beefs up until the end of your turn, so you can give it other abilities like Trample or something like that. Now when Stormwing Entity enters the battlefield, you get to scry 2 cards. So you get to look at the top 2 cards of your library, decide whether or not you want them on top, and if you don't, put them on the bottom in any order. Okay, I've got to talk about this one. This may not be a rare or mythic, but it is by far one of my favorite cards to use, I have to say. Hydras. Now, Hydras have an interesting ability. When you're bringing out your Hydra, you tap mana into it. The more mana you tap into it, the more counters it gets. The more counters it gets, the more counters it will double at the beginning of each of your upkeeps. The Wildwood Scourge was the Hydra I was talking about. It'll be up on the screen for you.
All right.
Editor, get to work. All right, next rare we're talking about is Force this time. It is cost 2 to bring out. Heroic Intervention. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructibility until end of turn. Essentially, no spells, abilities, or creatures can harm your creatures. All right, now we're going to talk about another forest rare again. This one's called Garruk's Harbinger. It's hexproof from blacks only. When Garruk's Harbinger deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may reveal a creature card from Garruk's Planeswalker card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest of them on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, if there is a part 2, I'm sorry if the video ran a little long, but this is a lot of cards to go through, and I'm trying to, explain certain ones.
It's the editor's fault.
It's always the editor's fault. Editor, get to work. Editor, I told you. Since camera keeps shutting off. Well, cool. We got 2 rares out of this next pack. The first one being Conspicuous Snoop. It is a Goblin Rogue. Play with the top card of your library revealed, so you always know what you have coming next. You may cast Goblin spells from the top of your library, as long as the top card of your library is a Goblin card. Conspicuous Snoop has all activated abilities of that card. So, say you've got your Goblin King sitting on top there, and this guy is out. If Goblin King is sitting on top, you can either summon him straight from your deck, or you can leave him there and grant your Goblin here the same abilities. The next one is called Containment Priest. Now this is the alt art non-border version. There are other versions of it as well, but this is like by far the best looking of all of them.
Kitty! Alright, we got another mythic yet again. This one is Basri Ket, another planeswalker. Basri Ket is a white planeswalker. Liliana was a black, a swamp. +1. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. It gains indestructibility until end of turn. -2. Whenever 1 or more non-token creatures attacks this turn, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. So for every creature that you got attacking, you also get a token creature attacking with it, essentially giving it haste. The final ability, once again, you have to build up for, because this one only has 3 to start off. It's less than Liliana. -6. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control.
Alright, the next rare we got is called Demonic Embrace. Demonic Embrace is an enchantment. It's an aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+1, has flying, and is a demon in addition to its other types. You may cast Demonic Embrace from your graveyard by paying 3 life, and discarding a card in addition to paying its other cost. So yes, you could play it back from your graveyard again, which was also known as a flashback ability. Now flashbacks, you usually had to just pay the flashback cost to use it and then exile the card. However, this one does not force you to exile this card, and you can keep using it if you pay the 3 life and the mana cost. And also discard a card from your hand, but Other than that, it's not a bad card. It can be used in a destruction deck.
Alright, the next rare we got out of this pack was a Golem artifact. Solemn Simulacrum. When Solemn Simulacrum enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. When Solemn Simulacrum dies, you may draw a card. It is a 2/2 that costs 4, but for its abilities, it's not too terrible.
Next rare we got, called 9 Lives, Kitty!
It's an enchantment. It has hexproof, so it can't be the target of spells or abilities to destroy the enchantment.
If a source would deal damage to you, prevent that damage and put an incarnation counter on 9 lives. When there are 9 or more incarnation counters on 9 lives, exile it. When 9 lives leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So, it is not an enchantment you would want to use lightly. It is a last resort enchantment. Yes, it has hexproof, but there are still other ways to destroy enchantments besides spells or abilities. The next rare we're going to talk about is an artifact called Idol of Endurance. Idol of Endurance, when Idol of Endurance enters the battlefield, exile all cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard until Idol of Endurance leaves the battlefield. Now, tap 2 and tap. Until end of turn, you may cast a creature spell from among the cards exiled with Idol of Endurance without paying its mana cost. So, if you use this, you bring it out, you exile a bunch of creatures. Every turn that you get a chance, you tap your mana, tap your artifact, and you'll be able to summon that creature straight from exile without paying any mana cost in addition to it. The next rare we got was Brash Taunter. Brash Taunter is a goblin that costs 5 to bring out. It only is a 1/1. However, it does have Indestructible. Whenever Brash Taunter is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent. Tap 3 and tap. Brash Taunter fights another target creature. So you can force other opponents to fight this one creature, and then whatever their power is, they take that damage. Got another rare land, Temple of Mystery. This one is a different one from the others that we got earlier. Temple of Mystery also comes in the battlefield tapped, but you also get to scry 1 when it comes in, and it's for a forest or island. All right, the next ones we got were Animal Sanctuary, and we got the hollow version. Tap, add 1 colorless mana. Tap 2 and tap. Put a +1/+1 counter on target bird, cat, dog, goat, ox, or snake. So if you're building an animal deck, this card will work for any of those animals. The other card we got was a multicolor, red and green. Elf Warrior, legendary creature. Radha, Heart of Keld. As long as it's your turn, Radha, Heart of Keld has first strike. You may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may play lands from the top of your library. A little evil, if you ask me, because you're sitting there, you got this card out, you look at the top card, if it's land, you can instantly play it. Essentially giving yourself more mana, making room for other cards for you to draw. Its final ability is that you tap 4 mana, and then a mountain and a forest. Radha gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of lands you control. So the more lands you have on the board, the stronger she'll get until end of turn. Alright! Next rare we got is another artifact called Mazemind Tome. Tap, put a page counter on Mazemind Tome and scry 1. Tap 2 and tap, put a page counter on Mazemind Tome and draw a card. When there are 4 or more page counters on Mazemind Tome, exile it. If you do, you gain 4 life. Alright, the next rare we got is called Karvek, the Spiteful. Other creatures get -1/-1. So that includes your own. So if you're not careful, you can hurt yourself as well. Next rare we got Niambi, Esteemed Speaker. Niambi, Esteemed Speaker is a Plains Island card. It costs that to bring out and nothing else. It has Flash. I've already talked about the Flash ability before. When Niambi, Esteemed Speaker, enters the battlefield, you may return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, you gain life equal to that creature's converted mana cost. So the more it costs to bring out, the more life you would gain. Its final ability is that you tap 1 of any color, a Plains, and an island, and then you tap Niambi. Discard a legendary card and draw 2 cards. Alright, next rare we got, this time is a forest. Legendary creature, Human Druid. Jorel Bonvuli Recluse. That's the best you're gonna get out of me. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 green cat creature token. Yay! Which means anytime that you play a spell that allows you to draw cards past your draw phase, then you get to create a 2/2 cat creature token for each card you drew. Now, if you tap 4 and 2 forests until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So if you play a deck with no maximum hand size, which there are cards to do that, it's called Spellbook. If you didn't have one of those yet, you need to find one. But the more cards you have, the stronger your creatures will become until end of turn. Ghostly Pilferer. Spirit Rogue. Whenever Ghostly Pilferer becomes untapped, you may pay 2. If you do, you can draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere than their hand, you may draw a card. Discard a card, Ghostly Pilferer can't be blocked this turn. So you can also make it unblockable. It's a 2/1 that only costs 2, but can do some damage to your opponent especially. The final pack! We have reached the end of the unboxing for 2021. Thank you for joining us this far. This one is Basri's Lieutenant. Basri's Lieutenant costs 3 and a plains. It is a human knight that is a 3/4. It has vigilance and protection from multicolors, which means anything that is multiple colors, it could, be protected from. Anything that is an individual will still hurt it. When Basri's Lieutenant enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. That can be any creature, including itself. Whenever Basri's Lieutenant or another creature you control dies, if you had a +1/+1 counter on it, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. So it would essentially give you another creature to replace it. And that is the 2021 unboxing. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again on the videos. If you have any suggestions for us to open up something different, leave a comment below. Make sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our Facebook page at Midnight Games LLC. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.